Hecatia lapis lazuli, a character most of you probably know, is considered one of the more difficult extra stage bosses in Touhou. She carries this reputation so far that she is very well known as extra stage bosses go. I've had my own run-ins with her boss fight on Touhou 15, and let me tell you, everything they say is right. On top of that, she's not only strong in game, but she is also strong in lore as well. But why is that so? In this video, I plan to cover who she is, what she's based on, and why I think she is a likable character. Now, before we get fully started, allow me to make some corrections about my last video about Junko. In the last video, I failed to properly convey the difference between Junko's purity, which is more like refinement of metals, and the Lunarians, which is more like the Shinto or religious form of purity. The Lunarians see fairies as impure because they introduce natural processes with their life force, like seasons and growth. That means that having the fairies around goes directly against what they wanted, since it threatened their way of life. I'm going to spare the rest, but if you want to know more, check out my video on Junko. It might be best to check out before Hecatia's anyways, since they go hand in hand. Also, I'm aware the pronunciation of her name is more like Hecatia. Alright, now that I've done some corrections, let's cover who Hecatia is. As previously mentioned, she first appeared in Touhou 15 as the extra stage boss, and she was no joke to beat. I mean, I did technically beat her, but I used Racing and it was very unclean, so I might still be trying to do it if I played a different character. She also appears in Touhou 16.5, but none of the appearances in this game really matter for advancing the story. My favorite appearance of hers is actually in Visionary Fairies and Shrine, where she played the rather important role of bringing Clownpiece to Earth. For now, I'll cover the game appearance, and I'll cover the manga appearance later in this video. If you watched the Junko video, you know that most of the driving force of Touhou 15's plot came from Junko's emotions. However, Hecatia is the one that actually gave Junko the means to keep moving forward. Without Hecatia, Junko was at an impasse. She could not deal damage to the Lunarians. Hecatia fixed this by providing Hell Fairies for Junko to purify. The Hell Fairies then attacked the lunar capital, and the Lunarians fled to the Dream World, where Hecatia then trapped them. But why did Hecatia help Junko? Well, sorry to break the news, but it wasn't out of the goodness of her heart. You see, Junko and Hecatia had mutual interest in the destruction of Chang'e, the wife of the man that murdered Junko's son. Funnily enough, Chang'e wasn't actually the one that affected Hecatia either. Hou had wronged her, and Chang'e was just unfortunate enough to be his wife. It was pretty unfortunate for her to end up having to deal with two of the strongest in Touhou. But how did Hou wrong her, you ask? Well, Hecatia herself says, the wife of the guy who killed one of my stars. So what does this mean? Well, that's where the mythology I could avoid for Junko's video comes in. Touhou is based on a vast number of mythologies and religions, two of which are Chinese mythology and Greek mythology. Both are relevant, as Hecatia is based on the Greek goddess Hecate, and Chang'e, Junko, and Hou are based on Chinese mythology. Please note that there are multiple relevant Hou-yis, one of which is in Chinese mythology, and the other is in a Chinese historical narrative, but Touhou merges them. In Junko's historical interpretation, Hou forced her to marry him after killing her son. She eventually killed him in this version, and that's as far as it goes. In Junko's Touhou interpretation, Hou was the father of Junko's son, killed him, fled and married Chang'e, and then got killed by Junko later. This is where it combines with mythology, as Chang'e is married to the mythological Hou, who was an archer that shot down 9 of the 10 suns in the sky. So how does this link to Hecatia? Well, in Greek mythology, Apollo is the god of the sun, so in Touhou, I think it's fair to assume that Apollo is one of the stars shot down by Hou that caused Hecate to want revenge. Hecate and Apollo were cousins in Greek mythology, but interestingly, her Roman mythological equivalent is Trivia, also called Diana, and has Apollo as a twin brother. So, in Touhou, Hecatia wants to avenge who we can assume is Apollo. Now, let's cover her theming and form. In Greek mythology, Hecate is depicted as having 3 forms. In Roman mythology, Diana is considered a triple deity and is merged with the goddess of the moon and goddess of the underworld. Diana represents nature, Hecate represents the underworld, and Luna or Selene represent the moon. Now, according to the Touhou wiki, one of Hecatia's forms represents the moon, one the earth, and the other represents other worlds. The other worlds in this case can be assumed to just mean Gensokyo and the other wacky places associated with it, like the Dream World. While she has these 3 forms, her actual core is located somewhere in Hell. Actually, the more accurate term would be Hells, since each of these worlds has its own Hell. Either way, she switches between these forms in game, but never uses them all at once despite being able to, as she states in Reimu's extra stage that it would be a waste to fight with all of her forms, which is also called unfair by Junko. Despite this, she still double teams you with Junko as the final spell card. In Touhou 15, Hecatia is mostly on board with the plan because Junko wanted revenge. I personally don't think she would have attempted to exact revenge if Junko had not attempted to do so first. I think it was most likely that Junko had some sort of positive association with Hecatia, and that's partly why Hecatia decided to help. Her dialogue insinuates this, since in Reimu's extra, Hecatia asks Junko if it is okay to release the Lunarians from the dream world. This gives the impression that she cares less about revenge than Junko. She also never actually uses all of her forms or gives it her all. She views it mostly as entertainment. Had she given it her all, I suspect she would have easily beat Reimu and the others. At the least, you would have seen a dozen more of that hellish moon attack. Her dialogue in general is almost antithetical to Junko's, as it gives her an excited demeanor, while Junko's is pretty much purely anger. In general, I like to view Hecatia as a chaotic force, and Junko as a controlled force. Hecatia mostly just does as she pleases. Now, let's get to my favorite of her appearances, Visionary Fairies in Shrine. This manga follows the 3 Fairies of Light as well as Clownpiece as they get up to various shenanigans. Later in the manga, an issue arises. Fairies are turning into crystals. Hecatia gets informed of this and decides to have Clownpiece collect the crystals. She then attempts to make a deal with Reimu and Marissa that allows her to take the fairies to hell so that she may revitalize it. Her plan is to, in her own words, spread the suffering to those spirits who lack bodies. She clarifies these new forms of suffering as greed and selectivity. This would save Gensokyo and revitalize hell like she intended, but she had never intended to harm fairies. However, just like earlier with Junko, she was capitalizing on the opportunity. Both times we've seen Hecatia do something like this, it is in a situation that someone else created that she can take advantage of. Junko was already fighting the Lunarians, and Hecatia just joined later to help. The fairies were already crystallized, and Hecatia just saw an opportunity to complete her goal, though she had intended to be more passive about it. I think in general she's chaotic regarding things involving hell. Her more whimsical, let's see what happens nature when compared to Junko's get shit done attitude makes them an interesting duo. That's enough of her relationship with Junko, let's get into her relationship with Clownpiece. Hecatia's actions show that she has a soft spot for Clownpiece. On chapter 4, we see her and Clownpiece as they descend upon Gensokyo. Hecatia tells Clownpiece to stay on Earth instead of going back to Hell. She also tells Clownpiece to show herself in front of people every so often. To some, this may seem to be Hecatia trying to collect information through Clownpiece's adventures, and while that may be partially true, I think some of it comes from Hecatia wanting what's best for Clownpiece. If Hecatia wanted Clownpiece to collect specific information about revitalizing Hell, I feel like she would have given a more specific order. Now, it is possible that we just never saw this develop due to the crystallization incident occurring, but the vibe I got when reading was that Hecatia saw that Clownpiece was enjoying herself and wanted her to keep it up. The ending of the manga supports this, where we see Hecatia punishing Clownpiece by making her stay on Earth, when in reality Clownpiece was happy to do that anyways. In the end, I think Hecatia has a soft spot for her subordinates, and maybe even Junko as well. We've never seen her give anything her all, so it is entirely possible she's one of the strongest in the Touhou universe. No matter what, she stands as an unresolved character. Honestly, I don't really have any groundbreaking theories surrounding Hecatia, so I'll end the video here as an analysis. Feel free to comment any theories you may have. Anyways, that's pretty much all for this video. I'm not sure what character I'll cover next, but it seems like the natural progression will be to cover Clownpiece. If you made it this far, feel free to like the video. I'll try to keep more stuff like this coming for as long as I can. I really need to get another 1cc under my belt soon too, to be honest. Maybe I should do that. Anyways, thanks for watching.